All right, good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you're coming from, everybody. My name is Kevin Simmons. I'm the Director of Parent and Family Programs here at Auburn University. Really excited that you would commit an hour to your afternoon or morning to be with us for Family Connection Hours. I'm joined today by three parents on the Auburn University Parent and Family Association Board of Directors, all from varying parts of the country, just to share a little bit of advice and guidance and stories about what their experience have been like as out-of-state parents. So once again, thank you so much for taking the time for us today. If you have a question, feel free to put it in the chat as we go, and we'll certainly jump back to that. If you do have to hop out for whatever reason, we will send a recording of this also. So know that if for whatever reason you need to leave a little early, I'll follow up with a survey and recording as well. So without further ado, I'm going to let our parent board get started. So Jamie, would you start us off with a little introduction?
Hi there. So it's good morning for me. I'm Jamie Lopez. I'm in Goodyear, Arizona. My connection to Auburn, my dad is actually a 1969 Auburn grad, and so I've loved Auburn since I was born. And I have two boys at Auburn now. One is a senior, and one is a freshman.
Hi, I'm Tom Hutton. I'm in Rockville, Maryland. I'm actually a graduate of Auburn, but I came from Colorado, so I was far from out of state when I first came to Auburn as well. We have five kids, three of which have gone to different schools, and our youngest is a junior in the engineering department at Auburn right now.
Hi, I'm Mary Jo Harp, and I'm from Houston, Texas, and I have five kids as well. And Sarah is a junior at Auburn, and she's our only out-of-state child at the moment.
All right. Well, once again, thank you all for being here today. We're going to start you off with your first question. What are some tips you have for staying connected from such a distance? With each of you not even being driving distance, what tips and tricks do you have for that?
I'll jump in. We do a lot of texting, probably phone calls every once in a while, more so with a freshman than with a senior. But one thing I started doing, I'm not a big social media person, but on Instagram I do follow a few Auburn things, including that from the actual university. So I'll just take screenshots of things think sound interesting they're happening and send it to one or both of my boys, and they'll usually respond. So that's one of my tips.
And
And
so,
I'll, co- oh,
oh, go
go
ahead,
ahead.
Mary Jo.
Oh, sorry. Well, I will try to come once a semester. So, we were just there last weekend for the family weekend homecoming, and it also happened to be my daughter's sorority's parents' weekend. So that was a big weekend for her and for us to be there. And then I'll go again in the spring and a couple times being on the board, we try try to be there three times a year. So that helps connect with her. And then just between that and her travels home for holidays, and she has a identical twin sister in Austin, and they visit each other once a semester. So between all that, I feel like we get to see her a lot.
So, this was not my idea. I wish it was, but it's worked very well for me. And I can't say I do it every single day, but I try. I text my son every day or almost every day, simply good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on when I text him. That's it. No questions, no how are you, nothing else, just a good morning, for example. And sure enough, he will text back good morning, and it creates this connection because he knows that I'm thinking about him and I know he's thinking about us. And there are definitely times where I text him, I need this, or we'll have a more substantive conversation. But there'll be days where it's just a good morning, and that's it. Or sometimes, at least over the summer, it was good morning, and then I wouldn't get anything from him until good afternoon since he was sleeping late. Um, but I think it works really well because it kind of makes the parent feel good that you're staying in touch with your kid. It lets your kid know that you're thinking about them, and that they're back in touch with you. And there are many kids that they want to be on their own. They want to learn to be on their own and kind of be self-sufficient and they really don't want their parents just constantly asking them, what's going on with class? How's this going? How's this going? Not that we don't do that, but we just try and keep those different conversations from the simple good morning, good afternoon, good evening text.
Yeah, that's awesome, Tom. Thanks for sharing that. All right,
Sure.
we're going to roll right into the next question. Since all of you, once again, are not within driving distance, we've got around the Houston area, the DC area, and around the Phoenix area. What are some travel hacks you use when you're visiting your student here at Auburn?
I like using Expedia to plan our just for hotel or Airbnb and car rental and airfare and have, used different airlines, from Houston to Atlanta. Um, there are a lot of nonstops, so and a lot of options. So that's been good. But I feel like I finally got the whole Houston to Atlanta to Auburn travel down, and I'm not afraid of the Atlanta airport anymore until this last trip. So I feel like I booked our car rental through Expedia and Hertz, and you want to do the skip the counter because you don't want to wait in any of those rental car lines at the airport. But Hertz didn't have my confirmation from Expedia, and I'd never had that happen before, but I've heard that it happens a lot. So now, like, I realize, okay, now you've got to confirm all your reservations with all the companies if you do book through Expedia because just to make sure, it all transfers over. And I've also found that like if you book super far in advance, like car rentals are really expensive on Expedia, but if you start double checking like closer to when you travel, the prices like cut in half for car rentals and it's cheaper than getting on the groom shuttle two ways. So, anyway, that's kind of how I plan our travels through Expedia.
Yeah, I will tell you, Costco also does rental cars, and the
Yes.
rates on Costco are pretty good. And I agree, Mary Jo. Sometimes the rental car, if you get it in advance, can be cheaper than Groom, but I would not count out Groom. It's not just for kids going to and from the airport at break. We've had plenty of us take Groom back and forth too. It's very easy. I think there's one stop between Auburn and the Atlanta airport. It's a piece of cake. Especially if your son or daughter has a car in Auburn that you can use, or depending on exactly where you're staying, it sometimes it's easy, or if there's just no rental cars available. So uh, don't dismiss Groom as an alternative if you need it.
Yeah, I will say I typically use Groom. I just find that Auburn's pretty walkable and I don't like dealing with a car and parking. I also, with me coming in from the West Coast, I like to do the earliest flight available. Whoever's dropping me off doesn't really love that because I'm usually needing to be at the airport at 4 a.m. But the nice thing is that I'll do a travel day prior to the weekend and I can have that be a remote work day for me. And by the time I'm settled in Auburn, even after taking the groom shuttle, it's before noon still in Arizona. So I find that to be helpful. And I haven't been reading all the chat, but I saw some things in the chat. One tip I found, I do like to stay from time to time at the Auburn Hotel, just right across campus. And if you go into their website and you look at their calendar, if you're just planning a trip just because, not because of a special event, you can see their pricing. And so it might be a nice time to plan a weekend trip to Auburn when their prices are really low. Because obviously they've priced most of us out during football weekends, of course, but other weekends you can get a very reasonable room. And I find the same with Airbnb and other things. I just kind of look for those off times. And it's kind of a nice time to visit Auburn as well when the activities, of course, are very fun, but it's just a nice campus to be on even when it's a quieter weekend.
Awesome. Thanks for those answers. So, if y'all have any questions as we go, feel free to just throw them in the chat. We've got a few here I'm going to go through. So, this is actually not a question, but just a tip from Jess, referring back to our previous question about being connected. She said, we've been sending proof of life pet photos, specifically of her cat that she misses very much. So, if you do have a pet at home, I think that is a great tip. And Jess, thank you for sharing. I don't know if that's something that the three of you have. Do y'all have any pets at home?
They miss the dog more than anybody, I found out.
Mhm.
So
Yeah. Yeah, we do that quite a bit. I like that idea. We do just sometimes similar to Tom's good morning, good afternoon, good evening, just sending a picture of the things that are going on around the house can can prompt some conversation where where our students aren't feeling pressure of we're checking in, are you going to class and all that. It's just kind of an easier conversation.
For sure. And then Jess again here said, yes to the skip the counter with Hertz. We're going to try Turo for our next visit to see how it goes. Do any of you have experience with Turo? Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Mhm.
yeah, I do not.
I've done Turo in many other places, but not at the Atlanta airport. Um, but I've had a positive experience everywhere else I've used it.
Okay.
You know, I will mention too, it's a little bit farther. It's probably an hour farther. But if you have a hard time getting to Atlanta or out, you can always go to Birmingham too. So like I said, a little bit longer, but it's still an alternative to get there.
And Montgomery's a little closer.
Yeah, that's true. This question is from Nicole. And Nicole, you may have to provide a little more context here. She said, where should I park my rental car when I visit Auburn? Currently do not have access to parking during my next visit. Is there a place I could pay to park overnight? I am not 100% on that, and if y'all are, feel free to chime in. But Nicole, if you send me a follow-up email, I'd be happy to look at some of the local parking garages and see if I can find a spot for you.
Or where are you staying that you can't park the rental car?
Yeah, we don't have the context for that, but Nicole, feel free to throw that in the chat. And this is just a tip from Eric. Eric said, Groom does not go into town on football game days. They drop off on the outskirts of Auburn. I have not used Groom on a game day. Have you, Tom?
No, I'm always there kind of before game day.
Yeah.
So
Okay, that's good to know, Eric. Though, thanks for sharing. All right, moving on to our next question. What helped your student adjust to college life during their first semester?
I'll start with this one. So my son is not in a fraternity, so he did not have an instant built-in group that he could go with, and he found his campus ministry to be very helpful to him, and he's grown with that. He's stayed involved with it. He's Catholic, so he's actually been part of St. Michael's Catholic ministry, and he's enjoyed it. And then his friend group out of that has grown to not only include people within the ministry, but outside of it too, kind of as your network of friends just expands. He's also been involved with study groups in the engineering department. I think that has helped him too. I think today it's really important to make sure that they maintain or create, uh, physical social contacts and not just social media contacts. I think that makes life much easier if they're willing to kind of get out of their comfort zone even and meet people face to face and really interact with them a little bit more. It's very easy to find it difficult to make friends and kind of hibernate, which probably isn't the best thing. But Auburn does offer a lot of different groups, a lot of clubs. So there's almost some group or club for everybody that you can get involved with. You can even walk dogs with Auburn. So there's a lot of things that you can get involved with. I would just get involved and kind of let the friend group take you from there.
Yeah. I'll jump in with Tom. I neither of my boys are in fraternities and same and they have kind of different personalities. So the one just stayed with his roommate and his one good friend that he made at Camp War Eagle, and that's become part of his core friends. So they've met, the circle has kind of expanded for them. My youngest is a little bit more social, so he went to all sorts of events during the first 56, kind of reconnected with people that he had met at Camp War Eagle. And then for him the dining hall, and it's funny, his friend group, I just took six of them out to dinner when I was there last weekend, and They say that they have a fraternity. They call it the Edge Fraternity because they eat at the edge. But have become very close-knit group and kind of help and introduce each other to other folks. So I would say definitely, as Tom said, getting involved and joining clubs is very helpful.
Yeah, and Sarah is in a sorority, so she, kind of hit the ground running with all the social activities freshman year with that, but also, you know, she was excited about all the other opportunities available. And, we kind of told her just to look at it like a buffet first year, first semester, first year, and just try all these different things, but then don't commit to everything because she's one of those, she could do that too. So it's been neat. She ended up, getting involved. She's gotten involved in her sorority, but she's also gotten involved in the Eagles program, which is a special needs program for kids and who are at Auburn and Young Life and her church. So, she's gotten involved in a lot of different things and has been able to just kind of focus on a few of those. But she did try, a lot of other things just her first semester.
Awesome. So I think a key theme we're hearing here is just do something, right? Just get out
Yeah.
and try different things. Sounds good. All right, the next question we've got, do you have any advice for holiday breaks and summer breaks and semesters abroad?
Um, Prepare early. Certainly, flights and if they're taking group transportation, those buses do fill up going to the Atlanta airport. So I don't think it's too early to prepare. My son did a semester abroad. I would say explore the semesters abroad. So he came to us as a freshman. He did the semester abroad after his freshman year. As I mentioned, he's in the engineering department. He did a semester abroad with the business school, and the way that that semester abroad worked, and maybe they all work, he he could do one or two mini semesters. But if he did both mini semesters, which was 6 weeks in Madrid, 6 weeks in Milan, he actually earned his minor in business. So, from a resume standpoint, now he's in materials engineering and he already has his minor in business, which I think is great from a resume standpoint. From a cultural standpoint, the trip abroad was great. But I would say, look into semesters abroad, kind of explore not only it's sometimes hard to get the kids to focus on an alternative reason for doing a semester abroad other than I want to go to London or I want to go to wherever, because you can get a lot out of it from a resume or an education standpoint as well. And even if you go within your discipline, you can catch up on some hours or get ahead on some hours as it may be. But so I would say, um, if you want to do a semester abroad to prepare for it, I would explore several different alternatives of semester abroads because you might find something that's a little bit different than what you or your son or daughter thought it might be to begin with.
And yes, Sarah did, she didn't want to do a whole semester abroad. She had too much FOMO to be away from campus for a whole semester. But she did this past summer do just a 4 week summer program in Italy. And it wasn't through Auburn, but the study abroad office at Auburn helped her, just make sure the credit hours transfer. And she wanted to do it with her sister who's at UT in Austin. And they both wanted it to their hours to transfer to both of their schools. So the study abroad office was very helpful in helping them get set up for this 4 week program. And they almost got their whole business minor. I think they're a short one class, so it was, they knock it out in a short amount of time, and then they travel every weekend. But it was a great uh, abroad trip for them.
And I would say even in addition to that, my oldest has done two abroad trips through the College of Business, and they've both been a week long each. One was in Amsterdam and one was in Italy. And I would encourage you, it's been very cool. Those were his first trips abroad, and it was like a business trip. So as a mom, I was pretty happy for him to number one have the experience, but also it was a very pretty structured setting. So I thought that that was really cool. And he's going to do another week in France, spring 26. So that's been really good for him. And in terms of preparing for holiday and summer breaks, if your children are flying home, it's nice to get the tickets ahead of time for two reasons. One, obviously pricing, but then the other piece is that then your students already have a plan of, okay, I know when I'm coming home again. So I find that to be helpful. And this isn't really travel, but one thing I've noticed is when I am visiting my boys, I kind of notice things that they have gotten into while they're at Auburn, whether it's like food or other things. And I try to have a few of those things at home so that when they come home, because it's an adjustment, we all know that they've had their freedom, no matter whether that's in a residence hall or an apartment, or whatever the case may be. When they come home, there's going to be that little bit of an adjustment of what is life like now that I've been away and I'm coming home for a little bit. And so just having a few things where they see that you've made an effort to welcome them back home can go a long way.
And I mean, kind of along the lines of just preparing for breaks and holidays and things, just being out of state and Auburn being the way it is with just hotels and all that, um, compared to my kids in Austin or, College Station in Texas. I've just found that I need to stay way ahead on the Auburn calendar. Like graduation weekend is already out for 2 years when my daughter graduates. But just needing, and then as soon as homecoming, parents' weekends are out, like just needing to jump on that for a hotel or Airbnb, just things like that. I've just found that Auburn is different than the other places my college kids are. So it just that planning ahead and just even booking something that could be canceled 6 months before, just to have something just in case, I have, you know, I'm just have to keep my 5-year calendar open.
Yeah, thinking ahead definitely is the key. So I think that's something to keep in mind. We had a few questions come in. This was from Sarah. Speaking of breaks, is there some place on the web that shows when dorms close for each break and when they reopen? This will help for our travel planning. Absolutely. So there is the residential calendar, which I posted the link in the chat, does show you specifically when the res halls close, when they open, and that does vary for those traditional on-campus residence halls versus the apartments that are leased through university housing as well. There may be a little bit of variance there, but the residential calendar is really helpful for when you're planning those out. I also posted some information in the chat about the Eagles program. I know there's some interest there. And then as far as the student organization about the dog walking, I'm going to have to follow up on that. So if you're interested and you want to learn more about that specifically, put your email address in the chat and I'd be happy to follow up with you afterwards once I'm able to gain a little bit more information on that. We did
Yeah,
have
hey
one.
Kevin, I think at auburnal.com or .gov,
Mhm.
there's information about parking in town.
Mhm.
That's probably your best bet to find where you can park. It just may be that if you're parking on a Friday, you're going to have to go reset your meter and maybe
Yeah.
move your car to a different spot. But there are parking decks
Okay.
around town that you can
Great.
park in.
Yeah. And keep in mind with that too, everything is different on a game day. So whatever information you get about parking on a regular weekend is likely going to be dramatically different if there's a home game in town. This is a question, and Jamie, I see you chimed in the chat. So just in general, if you've worked with any complicated situations about apartment complexes maybe not responding as quickly as you'd like, not resolving problems for your students in the manner that you'd like, Jamie, would you mind chiming in a little bit on that?
Sure. So I have not had that issue at Auburn, but I do have another son that's in Colorado, and I have had that issue with his management company, and I just find it's unfortunate that some companies, and his is a bigger one. I mean, they may have properties in Auburn. Um, they kind of take advantage of the fact that their main clientele are students and college students, and so I have just found that I just kind of put that on my list, and it reminded me I still need to follow up with a manager right now. And I just am persistent, and I try to be very unemotional and firm in my messaging with them, because I think at the very least they need to know that somebody else is watching out for those students besides just the students trying to navigate situations as they go. Um, and I'm sure we could compare horror stories, but sometimes it's just nice for us, even though we can't do a lot from afar, we can kind of step in a little bit, and just remind that management company that they have a responsibility to their tenants to be taking care of things in a timely manner.
Yeah, the other thing, housing is such a pain in general, especially when you're moving off campus. Is the thing that caught, and maybe this is one of the other questions jumping ahead, but it relates to housing. But the one thing that caught us off guard was how early you need to get on housing, or at least in theory, how early you need to get on housing for the next year. So a lot of the housing comes up in October, November type timeframe to try and lock something in. I think there's some apartment complexes that do sell out and are get preoccupied pretty quickly. There's other ones that kind of say they will that don't necessarily get occupied as fast. So I think you can always find that off-campus housing, but it's something that it seems weird that you would have a freshman that starts in the middle of August and then by October you're already looking for housing for the next year. But it's something I would 100% keep in mind and start to explore. If you can, at least start looking at apartments that they might be interested in and that you might be interested in having them live, as well as them trying to find roommates early. If they want to live with their roommate that they have in the dorm, great. If they're looking for other people, it just seems to kind of be a little bit chaotic for a period of time to get not only housing, but living arrangements with other people. So while it seems very, very early right now, it's actually not too late to at least kind of get going in the background on it.
And I'll add in as well, our next one of these webinar series, Family Connection Hours, is going to be with Allison Arusa from University Housing. She serves as the community housing coordinator, so she collaborates specifically with a lot of the off-campus apartment complexes, and she knows a lot of those details about best practices for when to start looking, um, what is the expected rate of rent, where things are located, where the Tiger Transit runs, all those things to take into consideration. So that's going to be October the 1st at noon Central. So if you're interested in that one as well, I just put a link in the chat so you can go ahead and sign up for that. But Tom's right, now really is the time to start thinking about next year, even though it does seem particularly early. I can tell you, I moved to Auburn a little over a year ago, and we moved in August, and I wasn't necessarily looking for student housing when I moved here. But it was slim pickings in August. So there are options if you wait, but if you want to have the full slate of options, you do need to start early. All right, looking
Yeah.
at the next question we have here. What do you wish you had known before your students started college? And we'll say started college, particularly here at Auburn, because I know Mary Jo, Jamie, and Tom, you've all had students attend elsewhere. But if you want to share a story about somewhere other than Auburn, feel free to chime in with that as well.
The housing, I'll stick with the housing.
Oh gosh, I feel like I'm kind of stumped with this one, but yeah, I just think how quickly it goes.
Yeah.
And so just kind of being organized and thoughtful about that. Um, with my senior, we really haven't had any regrets. I will say that he was much more self-driven in terms of gathering information, and so he would kind of report back to me things. Whereas my freshman didn't sign up for he's living in residence hall, and he didn't realize how important the timing was of getting a parking spot. And so he is parked way out in the residential overflow lot. Um, I kind of knew that, but he didn't. But I think those sort of things, just in timing and staying organized and really being on top of things, I think Auburn is a really unique space in that when there are deadlines and timing, sometimes you are going to miss the boat on things. So I think that that's important to know. Um, that's all I got for that one, I think.
Yeah, and I'll just ditto that about how fast it goes. I feel like we just moved Sarah in freshman year and now she's a junior and she's talking about her plans after college. So just, to take advantage of this time they have in Auburn and in college and, academically and extracurricular and socially and everything. I have two who are out of college now, and they're still kind of, I mean, my daughter especially, just kind of working through just being sad about missing all her college friends everywhere, and having to work, in an office all day long. So it's definitely, um, a fun and, exciting season of their lives, before they just move on to the work world afterwards.
And I will just jump in with something else. I will say, obviously we're here with all three of us are on the board and we're here with Kevin, so we work pretty intimately and are aware of some of the connections. But when you hear Auburn family, that really is a true thing. And I will say from experience, I know Mary Jo and Tom have experienced other universities as well. Um, my son that's in Colorado had some really big challenges, and it was hard for me to find connections for him in the midst of those challenges, and that was kind of a scary time. I will say that for him, he was in a big moment of stress, and he was working on a project, and I just told him, okay, after you finish each section of this, call me. And so we spent probably 72 hours where I was getting a phone call every hour or two, just to know that he was okay. But I will say when Auburn, even though it's a bigger university, they really do care. And so you have this connection with Kevin in the parent and family programs. But if you ever are in a space where you are concerned about your student and you're not you're not so concerned that you're ready to jump on a plane and get to them, but you want to get a check-in. This is a great office to connect with, and Auburn really does care and has a good system set up for doing their best to help students that may be in crisis or even pre-crisis dealing with some challenges. So I encourage you to do that.
Maybe this is tangentially related to what I wish I had known, but um, I've experienced this kind of both at Auburn since I went to Auburn and then somewhere else. And that's when you visit your son or daughter at Auburn, let them be Auburn, even if you went there. Let them take you around Auburn. Let them show you the places they like to eat. And sometimes I think I'm always telling him, let's go here, let's go here, let's go here. And I think it's their experience. And even if you went to school at Auburn, just kind of put your stuff in the back pocket and let them show you around. And if you didn't get there, let them show you around. Let them take you to the Arboretum or to Taco Mama, even if you have to wait a half an hour in line. But let them kind of be the Auburn person and show you their new home in Auburn. I think they really feel a lot of pride in that as well.
Yeah.
Can I answer one potential question too, Kevin?
Absolutely.
I don't know, maybe Jamie or Mary Jo know this better. There was a question about what to do with your stuff. We haven't had to experience that because my son's been in Auburn the whole time. He didn't get on campus housing his freshman year, so he had an apartment that ran on a 12-year lease. So we didn't have to store anything. But I know there are a lot of storage units in Auburn, and I think that they do have summer rentals, and that's where a lot of people end up putting stuff. I'm not aware of apartments that will allow you to store. Certainly, if you have an apartment, your lease will go through August or to August or to some point in August, and you can always leave your stuff there in the summer as well. But I would say look at off-campus storage units at U-Haul or wherever. I know they've even built some recently, not U-Haul, but some of the other places have built them, and you can store your things there rather than lug it back and forth to the 12 to 14 hour trip,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah,
absolutely.
and I put in the chat, our best timing that we did it all these years was we rented in March, and at first we were like, really March, but we locked in a really good rate. And the nice thing was it wasn't like a last minute rush, and any other time that we didn't do that, it was kind of a disaster. So just kind of put that on your calendar. Be thinking about it beginning of March is not a bad idea.
Yeah, Sarah's apartment lease ended July 31st this year, and then her new house lease didn't start till August 7th. And I think a lot of places have that 1 week gap, so they can get ready and turn it over. But so we just kind of held her stuff in her apartment till July 31st and had movers come, and they were just going to move it, into she's in a house now that has a garage. So it's just working with the your landlord or whoever, if it's at a house, she was working with the landlord and they were going to let them move everything into the garage for that 1 week. But then last minute, he allowed them to just go ahead and move into the house. So on July 31st, the movers just moved everything from her old apartment and into um, her new place. So that's just, they're not going to let you know up front, but there's always a possibility of that, um, happening. So we didn't have to find a storage unit for a week.
Awesome. Yeah, it never hurts to think outside the box. We got another question to come in. Tips for subleasing apartments in the summer or tips for local sites to buy or sell furniture. Have y'all had any experience with that?
I will say, so my freshman is considering taking over the lease of his brother that's graduating spring 26. And I was chatting with that management company yesterday, and it is only $150 to do like basically the transfer. So that's something, if your students are connected with anybody and they want to take over somebody, so I was like, man, that is not bad for peace of mind. So that's the only tip I have in terms of that. So it's more of a transfer to a sublet, but
And yeah, Facebook, I'm on a Facebook Auburn buy and sell. And so people are constantly, students and parents are constantly, like just today, someone posted antique mirror pickup today, $50, So so that I haven't ever bought or sold anything, but I'm on it and see everything that is getting listed.
All right. So once again, thank you, Tom, Mary Jo, Jamie. Thank you all for your time. We're going to move on to our last question, and then we'll just open up the questions for everybody in the audience. How has your relationship with your student evolved since they started at Auburn?
Um, I'll take this one first. I think it's evolved into I don't want to say better relationship because we had a good relationship ahead of time. It's evolved into a more kind of Auburn relationship. I mean, especially since I'm an Auburn grad too, I think he understands that we have something in common that his siblings don't have in common with me in terms of the same school, which I think he sort of likes. But I think he's also the last child. He's now on his own. He's experiencing new things. He's in a different major than what his siblings were in, and he has become more mature. So I think he's kind of evolved out of the kid stage, if you will, with us, and is more adult. Maybe kind of a weird way of describing it, but I think the relationship has evolved into not being so much hovering over him as a kid in high school type thing, but kind of respecting him as an adult who is making decisions in terms of what classes he's taking and when he's taking them, and making plans and looking for his own roommates. And it's good to see him kind of um, be on his own, but that's created a different relationship that's not farther from us. It's actually closer to us, but just in that different way. So kind of hard to describe, but all good, I think. And Auburn has treated him very well. He loves Auburn, and I'm very happy that he's happy.
Yeah, and I would just kind of tag on to that. Just, college is such a growing time for our students, in their independence and maturity and just figuring out life on their own and navigating their choices and all that. So, I guess, it's just great to, just to kind of, be alongside, I guess as a parent, you're still always a parent, but we're not guiding them as much anymore, but we're still along as they allow us to be. So, you know, just putting in our 2 cents, but then just kind of going along for the ride as well and seeing how they choose to navigate all the things there. So um, it's kind of been nice just, you know, seeing how the relationship, you know, grows in different ways.
Yeah, and I would just add, I think that maturity is there, and I appreciate seeing with all three of my boys, but the two that are at Auburn, that foundation that we've laid as parents over all these years, it comes back, and it's nice to see that they recognize that foundation that we've given them those 18 years or so before they got to Auburn. And a lot of times my boys will comment to me about how that is similar, that they have friends, they're making friends with similar experiences or some without, and so that appreciation for that foundation that we've built as a family has been nice to see. So it's been great.
All right. Well, big thank you for our panelists, Jamie, Mary Jo, and Tom, for joining us all the way from Maryland, Arizona, and Texas. So, if y'all do have any other questions, feel free to throw them in the chat and we'd be happy to answer them. We'll stick around for a few more minutes. If you slid in later, you had to slide out a little early. Once again, I'll be sending a link to this recording for anybody to view it after the fact. We'll also include a survey just to let us know what you thought about this session and what improvements or changes you'd like to see moving forward, or letting us know what topics you'd like to see covered for future Family Connection Hour sessions. Don't forget as well, October the 1st, we've got Allison Rusa from University Housing, who's going to talk a little bit about off-campus housing for 2026 and how both parents and students can go about preparing for that. So once again, thank you all. And if you have any other questions, feel free to throw them in the chat. We'll wait around for a few more minutes.
Yeah, and hey, Kevin, I know someone, I think Marcia said she was from Maryland nearby. I'm happy if she or if anybody on this wants to contact me directly, and I'm sure the same is true otherwise, um, over time to ask questions or to, if anything comes up. So I don't mind that at all.
Absolutely. And just keep in mind that goes for all of our board members as well. There's contact information listed on our website. So you can always contact Parent and Family Programs. We are a resource for all Auburn families. But if you want to talk specifically with a fellow Auburn parent, I'll put the contact information for each of our board members in the chat as well.